One. Boom, boom. Okay, should come in a second here, and we are live. What's up, guys? How we doing?
Hey, hey.
Yo,
I'm joined here by Ehiorobo and Icarus Moth for EveryDejaVu TV episode 2. Um, there is an episode 1 that exists that was not recorded, so shout out to those who did tune in for that. But EveryDejaVu TV is going to be EveryDejaVu's live stream podcast, and we're going to keep it sort of in-house. It's going to be just for EveryDejaVu artists, EveryDejaVu family, just to talk about things we work on. I figured the most reasonable thing to do with that is to start with all the artists I've worked with. Last episode, we had Dear Dea and Elbows on, who were actually good friends when they both lived in New York. In this episode, kind of a similar story. We have Ehiorobo and Icarus Moth joining, who we released their EP Mutamelior at the end of last year. We'll talk all about that. But kind of, first of all, how you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a long day, but getting the juices flowing again, you know?
Yeah, it's on the we're on the second part of the day basically now, so
Yeah.
second wave of juices.
yeah, I'm doing all right. Long day, but moving, grooving, having fun, trying.
Nice. Well, for starters, I kind of have to ask the obvious questions, and either one you guys can answer. You can cut each other off. I don't care how it goes, but how did you guys meet? Because I know there's a bit of a lore behind that. It wasn't just to make this little EP. You guys have been making music together for a bit. When did you
I
guys
call it
meet?
a big EP, to be honest. Um, I'll go right ahead. I had seen Icarus. I have to call Icarus Moth Nathan just because that's what I call him day to day. It'd be hard for me to not call him that in this conversation. But is that cool? I can do Icarus Moth if you want.
Yeah. We did live
Okay.
together, so.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're roommates for over a year. Basically, I'd heard of Nathan's artist projects, Icarus Moth, for years. We were both really active on SoundCloud in the 2010s. Both heads from that era. But yeah, we met at South by Southwest. Strangely enough, even though we were both kind of New York City based. I think the year was I think it was 2016 or it was 2017. Honestly,
17. I think 17.
17. At a jam session. Honestly, Nathan, I feel like you could talk about the jam session better than I could.
Yeah, well, so we were both out there for our own respective reasons. But I can echo the same sentiment, which is I was aware of Ehi's music project online because we were both part of the now probably it's safe to say defunct SoundCloud collective. That was this giant network of artists who all sort of connected on SoundCloud and developed their own little niches. And the one that we discovered each other on was Night Owl. Through our mutual friend Johnny, and he lives in Austin or close to Austin. And so when we were out there, I was staying with Johnny, and we wanted to kind of host all the Night Owl collective artists for a jam session and cook dinner. And so everyone came over to Johnny's spot, and we all just jumped on instruments and started doing our thing. It was very wholesome, I think. We had no intent to actually create anything real. We were just a bunch of goofy, a bunch of goofy hoodlums just making a bunch of noise.
Yeah, that goal was totally achieved.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I feel the amount of fun that it actually was. I feel the people who were there remember that night pretty fondly, and goal achieved for sure. There were a bunch of people that I knew musically from the internet. M Cubed was there. I think London was there. Chuck Sutton was there. We were all just kind of rotating instruments, just having a good time. And also for dinner, Nathan definitely made everyone spaghetti burgers, which was
spaghetti
the first time I've ever had that. That was
Wait, yeah. Well, let
nuts.
me hear
It's a good
about
time.
what is a spaghetti burger.
Yeah, so I mean, this is not like something that I do. This was inspiration born from the moment, I think. So
Yeah.
many artists in the same room and all. But it's exactly kind of what it sounds like. It's a spaghetti and meatball burger. So instead of just making a regular hamburger patty, you make it like a meatball. So not to offend the Italians, I won't talk about the meat ratio, but your onions and your seasoning, and then you make lasagna noodles because that fits well atop a burger stack, and then instead of your ketchup and mustard, you use marinara sauce.
It
Okay.
was nuts.
It sounds way
It
more
was
nuts.
great nuts.
It
I was
sounds like,
ready to
oh,
be
and
grossed out.
garlic bread buns, obviously garlic bread
Of
buns. You
course.
can't, yeah. So it sounds
Yeah,
crazier when I say it, when it comes out of my mouth and I hear it out loud in a room with reverb. But it was actually pretty good. I think it worked out.
it was a phenomenal time.
Nice. So
Absolutely.
from there, did you guys kept in touch, or was this like just a little spark and then kind of went separate ways for a little bit?
So from there, I feel like we had known of each other. I guess there were shows happening with artists around New York City that like I would see Icarus Moth on the bill and like I'd go to a few of those. I'm pretty sure that you performed a few times with like Maxo and some cats like
Yeah.
that at various different venues. There were a
Hmm.
lot of venues that were kind of like what people would rotate around in terms of that like 2010s electronic scene. And I also like we did go on tour in 2018 together.
Yeah.
Um,
So was Comments and Fake Blood pre or post tour? My timeline's a little.
I honestly maybe it was before. I
I
can't. I
think
think
it
it
was
was
before.
before.
So
I think it was
so
before.
we didn't like stay crazy close in touch after that South by Southwest week, but definitely stayed in touch. And he put out a track called Comments and Fake Blood, which I loved, and it was, you kind of referred to it as a ballad too, right? It was just kind of
I think
like
so.
Ehi and some synth key stuff. And the first time I heard it, I was like, I hear all these other elements. I want to add to this immediately. So I asked him permission, of course, because I'm a gentleman, and made a quick remix of it. And so that was, I think, one of the moments where we started like solidifying that we could like sort of work together in different capacities. And then when Mothica, a mutual friend of ours, was putting together a West Coast Midwest tour, he was invited to join us, and it was kind of like the perfect opportunity to just like get to know each other better and start thinking about music in that way because we were watching each other perform. And so there's sort of like a, not to be rude about it, but like an intimacy there, like sharing a tour van with
Sure.
each other for a long time. And
It was a
you know
really long indie tour.
yeah.
like I remember like we were. I can't remember where we were, but we were like in the middle of somewhere, just like standing outside of the car, listening to the new Post Malone album that came out, like beer bongs and Bentleys,
Yeah, it
and
was
it's like
Oklahoma.
yeah, it was Oklahoma, and I don't know. There were definitely a lot of good road times, And I feel like Nathan Icarus Moth basically like drove the entire tour, so like there was a lot of it was just like it was a lot of shows too, And I think like we were kind of looking at each other to kind of provide the social coolant sometimes, And I think we did a good job doing that. We can't take the credit for that, but I think we helped that air feel that way.
Yeah, well,
Make
also
it
at least
feel
for each
doable.
other, I could say that.
Yeah.
I've lost my
Yeah.
mind without having Ehi on that trip with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
How big of,
Yeah.
of a van are we talking that you were driving around the country?
Yeah, that's a absolutely spot on question to be asking us because it was a Chrysler Town and Country, and there was the Mothica crew, which was four of us, right? Yeah, four of us. And then Ehi and a full, well, not full, maybe like a part drum kit and all of our gear. And so what we had to do was we got this like Kevlar tarp situation that we strapped to the roof.
Whoa! I
But
forgot
because
about
we were
that.
we were so afraid of all of our gear being damaged up there, we sacrificed all of our clothes. So the clothing and all our personal
Wow.
belongings went on the roof of the car in the sketchy
Dude.
tarp, and then all of the gear was in the car with us. And so Mackenzie, bless her heart, was like Cirque du Soleil, like crumpled in the back of this car while we were driving across the country.
Wow.
Wow. So I wanted to save some tour conversations for a little later, but how does that
Yeah,
compare
different tour.
to
Different
yeah,
tour.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say, how does
yeah.
that compare to where you're at now, where you kind of can break up a tour, or like even like the tour conditions of like how the money you make and stuff like that? Because I mean, the indie world is always this little, like, I feel like black box of what people talk about. So for you guys who have been touring now, I mean, it's like it feels like a spanning over, well, basically a decade. Like, what's the difference between touring then and doing like even a small tour now?
You first,
Well,
Eddie.
I mean, personally, I feel like around like 2015, 16, 17. Well, I started touring in 2016, right? That's like
And
after
then
my
he
first
didn't
album came
stop.
out. Basically, I've done a lot of touring, but basically, I feel like there was a certain excitement. I feel like it's like kind of well evidenced online, just in terms of like the flyers that are around. There was kind of like a boom of like live events that like happened, especially around electronic music. I feel in the mid 2010s, especially festivals where there's like, I feel like there's a new festival all the time, and people are trying to like kind of use new digital tools to kind of like put out events. Like I feel like Facebook events was a big deal. Now it's just not, you know. But there was like, I feel like something happened in the 2010s where people are like, we all have Google Maps and we all have email, and like there are a bunch of venues and new music. There are a bunch of venues popping up now, and I guess social media is a new tool that we can use to market things. And I feel like there were a lot of people trying their hand at the world of live events at the indie scale in the mid 2010s, and so there seemed to be a bit of excitement around that. I guess it's definitely different post pandemic, in my opinion. You know, but honestly, I still feel like the internet and like indie music culture on the internet, there's like a bigger market for indie music now than ever in terms of like, I hate to put it in those terms, so like, you know, businessy, but it's just, you could see if you look at the numbers, you know, like it's, people are getting active in this corner, you know, and more people are able to, I guess there's more of a light being shown on it because of the way that like attention is uh, de-democratized. What democratized? There's a. I'm sure that someone can correct me properly. You know, but basically, it's easier to reach more people. Pandemic made it a little difficult. I'm rambling. Nathan, would you care to share an idea about your perspective on touring?
No, yeah, I resonate with all of that for sure. I'm not a serial tourist like Ehi is. I've only done a couple of them. Yeah, I think my perspective is different. The pieces that felt different to me are more related to my age and maturity. Maybe that might not be the right terminology there, but before I was kind of killing myself doing the tour stuff. Like I was actually damaging my body. All of us were. There's no way to
True.
avoid that with the setup that we had here. And you know, being a little bit more self-sustaining, we were able to do this in a way healthier way. And I think the quality of the shows went up by a drastic margin for it. I can't speak on Ehi because I'm sure his journey for finding a healthy balance with the tour life has been a long one.
Oh
But
man.
I noticed that. I think we were able to. Oh, that's gonna happen every now and then. It's not you. Sorry, I'm a professional. I swear. Um, yeah, so I think that I noticed that a lot. I can't speak so much on the money side of things, other than, you know, artists of our size lose money on tours, just period. There's kind of no way to avoid that. The Moth tour that we were discussing before, she was shelling money out of pocket for us to be there. She had to pay for a band, like transportation costs, like lodging, et cetera, et cetera. And so it really does kind of take a lot to cross that line and become profitable with those. But it's like a trade-off, right? We're talking about like marketing music, and a lot of the ways that we're being asked to market our music these days is maybe not super congruous with how we want to be in our lives, right? For maybe our own mental health. And I think live performance is one of those that's never going away. It's never really going to change. And so even if, you know, you're losing money, you're still having a good time, and you're still, you know, being able to directly reach people through your music in a way that's maybe harder to do online these days. So
Yeah. Um, Nathan brought up a lot of great points. I feel like we did a great job with the tour this past fall, you know, and like we definitely kind of, I feel like we bit off an appropriate amount in terms of what we can chew, and like we brought a lot of good intention to it. and had a lot of fun, a lot of strong shows, and definitely made it a lot more manageable. It was like, I agree that, like, at least in my experience, I'd say like up until 2019, I was definitely doing a lot of strenuous tour activity that did not need to be that strenuous. Just and that kind of having that experience, and both of our shared experience. Understanding like what we've done and how we can make it more manageable and more sustainable and more just fun. I think we did a better job this time around. The fall, I mean, the 2018 tour was still a lot of fun though, but I feel like we did it well this time.
You both mentioned kind of like the damage it puts on yourself, and then sort of it being a struggle to even make back money, the money you have to shell out, things like that. Kind of curious how that weighs against just the marketing aspect of it that Nathan you kind of touched on, the sort of thing of like, does it feel worth it? Which it kind of stinks that we're in this sort of climate of music in general, that we're like, we always have to do things that we're not sure the worth. We're not sure if this music video is going to be worth X amount of dollars that we spend towards it. So I'm just curious, out of the shows you've done, especially this more recent tour, did you feel like it was worth it?
Hey, so I'd say not speaking monetarily, because that's not fair to everyone. If it's not worth it to you for personal reasons, why are you doing it? That's kind of how I feel. Like I get so much out of traveling, period. To remove the show and the fact that I get to perform my music in front of people, like I get to go to a new place I've never been before and explore the culture and the environment. But then I also get to come and share my art with, who cares how many people in attendance. Like, to me, that's a special thing, regardless of all of the noise around it. And so to me, that's always worth it. If so long as I'm not hurting myself or putting myself in financial ruin to make it happen, then yeah, absolutely. And so the way that I see it, and to kind of bring back to my point earlier, is instead of paying for this side of marketing, I'm paying to go on tour to do it instead. And to me, that's more personally fulfilling for the money than some of these other things that it can be spent on, I think.
I think that's a great answer, and I resonate with that.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it well of what I would have assumed. I mean, speaking of that, even the thoughts of like traveling and stuff. You guys got some highlights from the last tour. I know, what was it, 5 stops overall? Maybe, I don't know if that includes New York as well, but I know you guys
I
hit
feel
a
like it
few
was.
cities.
Yeah, it was New York, Philly, DC, Boston, and New Haven. So 5. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Any highlights? I
Highlights.
mean, any favorite
Highlights.
restaurants,
Highlights.
favorite bars,
Highlights.
favorite roads, trees?
In terms of food, honestly, I remember a few experiences. I remember one particular, well, maybe like 2 experiences that were not positive food wise. I think like there were definitely other positive experiences though food wise. I mean, I think the New York show was like, it felt like a real success for the team. I think I don't know. Are there any highlights that come to your mind?
Yeah, well, you have to mention the New York show because it's home
Yeah,
turf advantage.
yeah,
But that show definitely did feel special. It was very like affirming to me in terms of just like the music we made achieving what we wanted to achieve. Like it was
totally.
like our first test group, right? In that way.
Uh,
And so that was great. But just on a personal note, the Boston show reconnected me with like a childhood friend from my
No way.
early days who I hadn't spoken with in over a decade easily. So that was very cool. They came to the show, and like I got a text like before we went on. And he's like, "I'm coming to the show," and I'm like, "Whoa, how do you still have my number?"
it's awesome.
But I'm so glad you do. So that was great. Shout out Max.
Yeah, we all got to hang out and eat Indian food. That was a great time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I feel like I had some high school friends come out to the Philly show. Like I feel like I don't know. It's always great seeing folks that you haven't seen in a little bit at shows, and also I feel like we both got to reconnect. Well, really, we both got to connect for the first time with a lot of listeners that have been following our projects for a while. Which was like really special to kind of like unveil new material and like have the opportunity to have someone who's like familiar with either one of us or maybe both of us to come like have a chat and at the merch table and just like kind of debut this new music that we worked so hard on. Also, like this music has just been in the works for so long. I feel like um, all the tracks feel up to date to me. Like they all feel very recent, but I think the oldest one we started working on like 2019, 2020 or something like that, which is like a long time.
Damn.
And just to be able to play that material out on the road and see it live and have people kind of interact with the material and have it feel in the room the way that it was kind of originally envisioned in like the sessions is a very affirming and positive experience that I cherish.
I guess on that note, you mentioned we started 2018, 2019 on this music. I'm guessing after the tour, things like that. What was the first bit of music that came from this, and how did you guys decide like, oh, an EP sounds good or more music together sounds good?
So I think technically the start date for this music was kind of the beginning of the pandemic.
Probably.
Yeah, because there was a moment kind of in between where I was like traveling to LA to do sessions and stuff, and I was in the studio with Defi, who's a super talented producer out there. And I set the session up, but I had no point. There was like no point. It was just like he said yes, and I was like, oh shit, now I need to come up with something for us to do. And I figured, oh, it would be really cool if we made a song for Ehi, because I think just like the three of us would fit in context. And so that's when we made Slow Truth, which sat on my SoundCloud for a long time, as tracks do. And then my partner Gabriella was going through my SoundCloud kind of at the beginning of the pandemic and stumbled upon it. Was like, this is amazing, we need to put this out, and kind of forced us into that. And so we did, which very much reconnected us. And we were like, man, we got to get back in the studio. This was great. And so that's, I think, what kind of triggered us to start working on music again. But we were really just hanging out. We were reconnecting. Like, we were catching up, obviously discussing current events at the time.
Yeah.
And so the choice to open up, the DAW and pull out our instruments was very natural. It really wasn't like, oh, we gotta make an album, man. Yeah, I don't know. Does
I definitely agree with
that's an accurate timeline, right? I think.
Yeah, totally. You're exactly right. Like, I mean, it wasn't anything like pressing, kind of like forcing the music out of us. It was just like, hey, this is a strange time of the year and a strange experience. Let's just hang out and try to make some sounds about it. Not about it, but like, let's well, there's nothing wrong with making sounds about it, but that's not what we were doing, but yeah, I think it all came out naturally and in good timing. I think in terms of deciding that it was going to be an EP or like a project at all, I feel like it came to a point where Icarus, Moth, and I had like a lot of like scratch tracks that we thought were really strong and some that were just done. And we're like, these can't not come out, like they have to come out eventually. And like they all kind of, I feel like we both make a wide range of music. Like Icarus Moth can basically like produce any kind of sounding song, and like have it like feel and sound sonically great. And I feel like I've written a lot of different material and like tried my hand at like a lot of different kinds of stuff like alt rap or like pop songwriting or top lining or what have you, and it's really fun sessioning and making music with Icarus, Moth, Nathan, because really it feels like anything could happen between us, and like often we surprise ourselves and we're like, all right, let's put some spackle on that one and finish it up, and like all of a sudden we have a song we didn't think that we could make before. That's how I feel, at least, like, very occasionally working with Icarus Moth. By very occasionally, I mean like much of the time. Many of the occasions I feel that way. But anyway, we had this group of songs that kind of felt sonically cohesive, but they were all different styles, and felt like it was time to, set the track list and make some plans. I think that was maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago. We decided that,
Yep.
Feels accurate.
Yeah, we kind of recognized the red thread that connected all of these songs, and we were like, okay, well, this is a story that we can tell and want to tell specifically at the time,
Yeah.
Which is good. It's just it very much motivated us to push it forward, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to touch back on something that he said. It's like I am a music chameleon, and I am proud of that fact. But it doesn't mean I don't have opinions, right? It doesn't mean I don't like and dislike sometimes what I'm working on. And I really love
Sure.
working with Ehi because that process is so like experimental and explorative. Like I think one of my favorite parts about working on music in general is that like just trying stuff, throwing stuff at the wall, turning knobs, just seeing what happens without necessarily any direction, because that's how an artist will like stumble upon something cool and then weave it into the art that they're making. And to me, those are the bits and pieces that I love about my own art the most when I go back and listen to it. It's the stuff that we stumbled upon. It's those happy accidents that kind of came through the process. And he definitely like opens that environment up in a major way to let that stuff happen. A lot of people come into the studio with like very rigid ideas, right? And that's not bad. I'm not saying that's bad, but it really kind of changes the way that session works and the music is approached for sure.
I actually want to hear more about that. Like, what is your guys' process? Is someone bring someone a song, a melody, lyrics? Like, what is, or is it just kind of both of you guys kind of just meshing together and figuring it out?
I kind of feel like we have individually kind of just like been making music for such a long time that we want to just try out the process in different ways all the time and just see where it goes. But like we have our ways of going about it that feel tried and true, and we kind of include those sometimes too. Like I feel like I'm really comfortable like trying out vocal melodies on chords and building from there. Um, but it really changes all the time. You know, like
Yeah.
sometimes you'll just have like some production that you just made the other day or made like right before I arrived, and like that's what we're working on because it just feels good. Or in real time, like you're just messing with some drums. I think I'm playing drums on like one track on the EP, but like all the other instrumentation is Icarus Moth. I feel like it's really different every track, you know?
Yeah, I think we do often like we always share like new music we've been listening to with each other, which always sort of like gets the juices going a little bit. But I would say that in the ways that like Ehi pushes the boundary with like the vocal and the top lining when we work together, in the ways that I like to push the boundary with the sound design and the composition, sort of like align with our tastes. Like Ehi and I share a lot of similar inspirations in terms of the weird stuff, right?
Sure.
Like I'll just mention Flying Lotus because that's an easy unifier of like the strangeness of my sound and the strangeness of Ehi's sound to make something very cohesive. And so when we are pushing the boundaries, I feel like we're oftentimes like very aligned when we like, hit that like point, like when we find that like crossover where it's like, oh yeah, this is weird and cool, this really works. Where like a lot of people, it's just like it's so subjective that not everybody's going to be so aligned in that way. But especially with just like the sound palettes that we play with, I feel like we are, which does make the session a lot more smooth.
Sure.
Cool. I mean, you guys have been making music together for a bit, but are we talking like the music on this EP was like a handful of sessions, or this is just like a tough to count? You guys work a lot together many times, can't count how many times you work like we're in the studio together.
I feel like it's tough to count.
We live together,
yeah.
so that makes it hard to count because there will absolutely be days like after work where we did like a couple hours here and there to just like tidy something up or listen to it and make some thoughts and like make some edits. But what I will say though is with these sessions, the song was realized in one go every time. Like we were never left with pieces that we then like returned to and actually like realized into a piece of music. Like everything was a set if I probably do somewhere, it'd be kind of fun to pull those up, but if we shared the very first iterations of all of these tracks, you'd be like, oh yeah, I can hear it, I can hear that's the song. And so I think that's reflective of just like our ability to like chase the inspiration in the moment and how we align on like where things should go. But also just like our work habits, like we know how to finish music. Like it's kind of it's a joke amongst producers. Like everyone like gets half a song done and then calls it a work in progress and then moves on to the next one, right? So everyone has their own ways of getting out of that trap. And so, yeah, I think that's part of what made or sort of elevated these sessions over the other ones that we've had together to be considered more deeply and like spend, because when we do vocal tracking proper, it's like a full day, like we really spend a long time like really making sure that everything sounds great and that he has his process.
Yeah, I'm notorious in that household for being a stickler on the vocal nudging, but I stand by it. But yeah, we definitely take our time. It's a mixture of, I guess, the spontaneity and like feeling in the moment, and then like listening back a week later and being like, that is going to get finished no matter what, and like we both like it enough, so then we're both gonna hold each other to it, and it happens.
Awesome. So that's a little bit about the music, but I need to know more about, like, I don't know, like the name of the EP and the art direction. I feel like both of those are so cohesive and such a big part of what like was my introduction to all of it. Like just seeing the press photos, seeing the name. What, where did that all come from?
Yeah, we snapped. I'm not gonna lie.
Even the tour stuff, like you guys had the uniforms, the merch table, like everything was very to the detail. And so walk through. I want to hear all about how you guys.
First, I got to give credit to my partner Gabriella Aurelia
Yeah.
for like 99% of the creative direction stuff, like the tour set list,
Snaps.
set design.
Yeah.
That was absolutely her, and she's a mad scientist genius who lives
Yeah.
out in LA. So anyone needs film or creative direction out in LA, reach out to us for sure.
Yeah, we basically like did the Gabriella shot all the press photos and did all the visualizers and videos basically in like one big studio day.
Yeah.
And like edited them, which is like nuts. They're incredibly talented.
And did the tour flyer and ran our merch table during the
Yeah.
tour and
it's featured on track.
Designed it and ordered all of the props, and I could go on and on.
Yeah, definitely. But honestly, like they're just you're both creative workhorses, and like to have you both on a project to work with is a wild experience that not many people get to experience. So I definitely lucked out there. And yeah, I feel like I keep losing the original questions. I'm just like trying to just share flattery everywhere, and I'm losing the pinpoint of the conversation.
Just tell me about like how did the art direction come to be, the name of the EP?
Yeah, the name.
Yeah, everything.
The name. So I feel like Icarus, Moth, and I are. I mean, we do a lot of different things in terms of our artist projects and the styles, but we also do have very particular tastes. So for us to meet in the middle about how we want to present music takes a lot of like coordination and forethought. And there were like long threads of text about like what we should probably name this or what we should go for thematically. And I think in the early parts of the conversation about the project, I feel as if we were leaning towards something that felt like it had to do with science or exploring the natural world, right? Because that's honestly what it feels like to work with Icarus Moth in the studio, because you have such an attention to detail and put a magnifying glass on things that I like almost intentionally brush over, because I'm like I can't focus on that, or else I won't do the few things that I feel like I can really do, and you're there with a magnifying glass and throughout the entire process, like, sonically buttoning stuff up. And I feel like that's what a lot of the tracks felt like. I mean, I fear that this might sound a little corny or lame, but they kind of felt like almost like case studies of genres here and there, like they're all so different, but they're all kind of, I feel like they're outliers within the archetype that they are, like, isn't just a house track. It kind of feels, it's like, it's garagey, but also it kind of like tells its narrative, which is like not very common for house tracks, and it's not just like a repeated phrase. It's like hook. I mean, hook verse, two verses, and like a bridge. There's like a full structure, and like that's not very common in house track. Is what I'm trying to say, in my opinion, at least in my experience. And for all the other tracks, I feel like we were really aware of like what we were pulling inspiration from, because we just share similar interests, but also have like our own specific interests outside of the shared interests. And I feel like we were constantly talking about what the best structure should be, and I'm proud of the amount of forethought that went into um, the literal songs, because I'm someone who can't get lost in the sauce and like try to pull off a certain kind of like stage design or just have a cool title that makes me feel excited, and I forget about like what is this literal song doing, and I'll constantly have to bring myself back to there. But working with Icarus Moth, you stay there, you know, and I feel like the title. I'm definitely talking about. I'll let Icarus Moth get some shine in terms of this explanation. I don't want to hog it, but I feel like the title, it's Latin for to change us for the better, you know.
Yeah,
And
we made it though.
we did make it.
The etymology checks out, but we made it up.
We did make it up. We did make it up. I should have. It's an important note. It's Latin gibberish. That actually does mean to change us for the better.
Yeah.
But it does check out, and I feel like the tracks were put together honestly in a very in a season of life. For me, I could definitely speak about my own experience where I would definitely feel like I was on the cusp of change. You know, I moved out of my parents' house for the first time, and had just kind of like finished two huge projects, and like was kind of ready to bring a different level of forethought and attention to my music, and also just like have a positive social experience around music instead of just like, you know, digging through the weeds by myself. And I feel like this collab really does mark kind of like the turn of positive change for me in terms of how I approach my artist project, and how I choose to dole out my time and what my priorities are. I've always tried to be intentional about it, but I feel like this marks a certain level up personally, you know?
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add there?
We have to mention the word hope because
Yeah.
that was the marketing buzzword we used. No, I'm just kidding. It genuinely is. Like, I think that was sort of the sonic red thread that we identified in these tracks when we were kind of coming through what we were working on, and that's sort of what has influenced the choice of changes good, changes for the better. Because the songs themselves sort of represent the evolution of hope, right? Do you being the least hopeful, and Find Your Way being the most hopeful. It's kind of meant to express a bit of a journey there, and so that influenced a lot of our artistic choices for the media.
So
Sure.
you guys, I mean, you had the art direction really well done, like we spoke about, but you guys had uniforms for the live shows. Is that just like a cool touch, or did you have a purpose for what specifically why you chose them?
So like, I think, well, really, Icarus Moth chose uniforms, but I feel like we only really wore them together like for one show, and also like the live performance video.
I wore it more. I ripped that
Yeah,
suit for sure.
yeah,
That was no. So we were talking because we have our fits. You know, he's like the most stylish individual I know. And his living together like heavily influenced my style, and I was like, so now I have some fits. And so we
I've
were
definitely borrowed a lot of your clothes. I'm just gonna
yeah, like
interject. I bought a lot of your clothes, and I have a lot of your clothes.
that's true. So we coordinate fits obviously for when we do shows and filming stuff. And so we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for the live performance video. And so I was just like, I'm going to go into L Train Vintage, the vintage store down the street in Bushwick, and just see what they have. And because I wanted something like we were both wearing the same, like just something the same. And the only thing they had that was the same were these like mechanics outfits. But it, like in the moment, I was like, you know what, that might be a vibe, and it kind of was. I might wear that out to dinner someday.
Yeah, when you guys, I think both you had like jackets on. Obviously, it was like cold November, and I was like, oh, you know, they're dressed well, whatever. And you guys get on stage, and I'm like, where the hell did these two outfits come from? And then that on top of just the way you guys had the details on the stage set up, I thought it was a great touch. Totally changing gears. You guys mentioned the pandemic earlier, and kind of working together during that time and stuff like that. I'm curious just because I feel like I'm always interested to hear, like, how was music for you guys during that time? where you're working on a lot of music? Did you kind of like branch out to even other hobbies and stuff like that? Um, yeah, just kind of curious to hear.
I want Icarus Moth to go first.
Oh God. No, it was all bad. Just being completely honest with you. I was creatively empty. I was just like bored, and I wanted to make music so bad, but every time I opened my DAW, I was struggling to make anything that made me feel it. And I was also like moving around, like I wasn't in my normal space, and for everyone who like knows anything about music production, like changing the environment that you're working in that you've become so accustomed to like impacts you, and so that on top of everything else that was going on, I think was really tough for me to like. Usually music's my outlet for stuff like that, and when it wasn't able to be that, I kind of just fell back to the more traditional things like video games and TV and this and that. And so yeah, it was tough for me, and working with that, he was a huge reason why I was able to sort of like come out of that. um, the music work that I was doing outside of like working with my friends and my partner wasn't like super inspiring either. And so yeah, I think it was just like a perfect storm, and more than anything provided me with a break, maybe a much needed break from the grind. I will call it. uh, and so, yeah, even though I felt bad and it felt bad, I think it was good for me. And now I feel better than ever and more creative than ever. And also, like, I'm more equipped with tools to deal with that if it ever happens again.
Nice.
Word.
Ehi?
I was finishing up an album in 2020 and was kind of like dealing with my own, I guess, anxieties and other health stuff that, was in a rough spot throughout that year. Absolutely. And I think I was like definitely like overloading myself on kind of like self-imposed and also like, deadlines imposed by other people and projects that I like was supposed to complete work on. But throughout that year, it was definitely rough for me in terms of like the load that I had. And it I was living with my parents. They're great people. I love my parents, love my family. But to be that kind of socially stifled in a town where I'm not too friendly with folks, like deep in Jersey, was rough for me as well. So like coming up to going to New York City to hang out and make music with friends in like a very secluded pod of people was like a big outlet for me. And like doing songs or making songs with making songs that I really enjoyed with people that I like to be around, really like helped me get through that moment and era, But yeah, I think like I was just spending a lot of time in my parents' basement, like working in the DAW alone, and to not have to do that, and to get to make music with people in a social setting it like kind of made all the difference for me.
Yeah, that's definitely worth noting. I'm a like working on music with others to me is like I haven't made a song by my. Okay, that's not true. I kind of like in between like my hours at free time at work, like I'll make like little goofy things like for myself for fun. But like realistically, I haven't made like a song for the Icarus Moth project by myself for myself in years and years and years and years and years, because music became such a collaborative thing for me. And so when the pandemic sort of took that away, and like don't get me started about trying to do Zoom sessions, it's just not it. Um, that was I think a big reason why my creativity took such a hit, is because I'm so used to bouncing things off of people, but also just the inherent like second pair of ears in a room when you're like operating machinery, running the ship, if you will. And you're by yourself, it's so easy for you to like just zoom into something and spend hours like doing something that doesn't really like move you forward. But when you're with other people, you can't. You are much more aware of their presence and the fact that you can't just sit there and spend hours like zooming in on something. You have to actually like move forward and like keep it moving, keep the momentum going. And so yeah, losing that was tough, and helped me realize like how much I relied on that. And so that's maybe what I mean a little bit about having tools to help deal with it if it ever happens again in the future. It's sort of like recognizing what I pull from those collaborative sessions, and maybe how I can go and find out ways of achieving that by myself. Something to work on, right?
Ehi, are you kind of the same way, or do you make music? Are you able to make music alone and kind of your own solo music?
I mean, I feel like I've done a lot of both, but I super prefer to work with people. I just feel like um, I'm able to get ideas and work with folks that have skills that are beyond what I focus in. Um, and it allows me to feel free and to like, I guess, reattach myself to like that social awareness where it's like, all right, like we all just want to hear the song and have a good time. If you like honor that with what you're working on, like the song is probably going to improve, to be honest, you know. And I think like collaborations are really important for me that way, and I always prefer to work with people in some capacity, even if it's like I don't know. I just prefer it, you know.
Yeah, I get that. Um, well, a lot about music, but I'm curious to hear from you guys because Icarus Moth, you kind of mentioned it with video games and movies or TV or something like that. What do you guys do besides music? Like I have an inkling of thought based on some comments and things I've seen you guys. I mean, you were playing Lion King on Twitch a couple
It's
months
true.
ago and stuff.
I
Yeah.
was.
What else do you guys do
It was
besides
it
music?
was a brave endeavor, by the way.
We. Oh my gosh, the way that ended. Um, oh my god. Like, so I'm not. If any of the viewers here are like aware of the Lion King game for Super Nintendo, it's super hard. It basically follows the exact narrative of the movie, and like at the end, it's supposed to throw Scar off of the rock, and like my last life after like the last playthrough before we were gonna call it quits no matter what, Scar threw me off the rock, and like that was it. And like we never won. That was
Tough.
nuts.
Tough.
Yeah, but I mean, I like to. I like a lot of stuff. I mean, I like. Um, I don't know. I have a lot of different interests. I like to follow sports here and there. You know, like I used to play basketball and like run track in high school and stuff. But to be honest with you, like another big kind of inspiration of mine as of recently, especially the past few years, has been like comics, like indie comics. You know, um, I like publishers like Image Comics and stuff like that. There are a lot of series that like I just appreciate the narratives of and illustration styles and the coloring styles and like looking at illustration or even just I think like foreign films helps me just like feel like I want to write things. You know, for me like ingesting media. There's a difference between like ingesting media for the sake of like directly trying to have it inspire what you make and ingesting media because it just makes you feel like you're having fun, you know? And like sometimes it's hard for me to like delineate the two. But in general, I don't know. I think I make music because it's fun, and I started making music because it was fun. So like naturally, anything that I watch that makes me feel like I'm having fun, I try to make things like that, you know, because it's a natural feedback loop for me. Um, but yeah, sports, comics, and like occasionally video games. I used to game harder. Anime has been a big inspiration of mine for a while, and animation in general. You know,
Hmm.
um, that kind of stuff. How about you, Chris Mall?
Yeah, I
Real
would
quick,
say,
Icarus Moth. I need to lightning round Ehi real quick on a couple
yeah,
things
yeah,
before we move on.
of course.
Favorite basketball team?
Ooh, if you asked me in the year 2010, I'd say Orlando Magic because of Dwight Howard. So I'm gonna stick with that answer.
Solid. Last foreign movie you watched?
Last foreign movie? Oh, geez. It was called El Cine. El Cine. There's some literally like I think El Cine is the term, like the restaurant in Spanish. I saw it at some kind of like theater in Manhattan a few months ago, and it was really good.
And favorite or last anime you watched?
Favorite last anime I watched? I've been going through Gundam pretty recently, like the Gundam Cinematic Universe, this Universal
Nice.
Century. I'm like, I got my first. Well, I got like two different model kits. I'm like early stages in one of them, but that's where I am.
Solid. All right, your turn, Icarus Moth.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, he and I share an unexpected interest in UFC. Um,
True.
Because you know, like little soft boys playing like their instruments in a corner, you're not usually like, oh yeah, they go and rip it up to the UFC. But yeah, for some reason that was just been sort of like a form of entertainment. But no, when I turn music into my career in many different ways, because I do marketing music, right? Like music for commercial marketing. I have music projects of my own. I have music projects with my friends, and then I teach music at a school. And so I very much needed to find something not music related to kind of turn into my hobby, right? Because it's healthy to have a hobby. And so cooking, I would say, is kind of like the main replacement for that,
Yo,
because it feels just like making music, like did back when it was just like a. Because jump back to my early history, music replaced video games for me when I was like a child. And so instead of coming home and jumping on the GameCube, I'd get on FL Studio instead. And so the way that music felt to me in that stage is still how cooking feels to me, because I have so much to learn. There's so much to it. And the results are immediate instead of in music, where sometimes it takes a very long time to see your actual piece of art realized. And it's also communal. So this like collaborative thing that I was talking about, like growing up, I would always cook with my friends for fun. When we didn't know what we were doing, it was disgusting. Don't get it twisted. Like what we made was awful, but it was so much fun to make such an awful dinner. And so, yeah, I think that just kind of naturally became a thing. And so I pride myself in being like one of the New Yorkers who cooks meals. uh,
not a
which,
lot
you know,
there.
yeah,
Not too many of them.
not a lot of New Yorkers. You know, Grubhub is dominant out here. So that one, and then like, you know, I did mention video games. I wouldn't qualify myself as a gamer. I'd say that's unfair to the gamers out there, because I get bored easily and I don't quite have enough time. But yeah, I like a good video game for sure.
Yeah, I gotta chime in and say something really quick. Nathan's Icarus Moth chat viewers, you're very good at video games and incredible at cooking.
Thank
Like
you.
if you, I think it's probably a unanimous perspective that people who visit your house feel they're like, oh wow, it's like that. Damn, I really feel like that was my experience, and I'm sure there are so many people that agree. So
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I like making a thing of it too, because like cooking is naturally like part of hosting. And that's also something that I noticed when I moved to New York from Colorado over a decade ago. Like hosting is a thing out there. Like you invite people over for dinner and you cook for them and you entertain, and then they leave and you clean up. That's not really much of a thing out here. I mean, it's more so of a thing here than it is in Los Angeles, I would say. But yeah, it was sort of like a social lubricant for me moving out to New York, because I'd invite people over, share that experience with them, and they're like, "I've never done this before," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You've never come over to your friend's house for dinner before?" Like it was crazy to hear that, but it was common experience for sure.
You know, I never actually thought about that. From in Florida, like I grew up with a Hispanic family, Hispanic friends, and that is so
Yeah,
common. Like you have
absolutely.
people
Yeah.
over, you have families over, you cook for everybody. Coming up here, I really, yeah, I've had friends over for dinner and stuff, and it I've had that comment before, like, oh, this is so cool, we should do this more often. Because yeah, like what's better? Like you're like probably, I mean, sometimes cooking meals is more expensive than going out, but you're probably saving money. It's a good time. You don't have to worry about going anywhere. You're just with people you love. It's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, lightning round for you now.
Mm.
Favorite UFC fighter?
Oh, I don't have one. I'm not like that. I like the sport. I like the sport. I'm learning to get connected in that way. I'm like, I don't know enough about them outside of the ring to like say that. So I'm like
Yeah.
way too afraid. They're way too problematic. I can't be throwing any names in the ring.
It's probably the
well
right
put.
Yeah.
Well
'cause
put.
It's
because,
more like I can say who I know I don't like, who I know is not my favorite, but that would be a big list.
right, yeah. I don't keep up with UFC enough either. I was watching the last one that happened with, like, they didn't know if John Cena was gonna come out or something like that. And I was being told
UFC or WWE? Was he in UFC?
my bad. Yeah, I'm thinking of WWE. So that's how much I keep up.
Yeah, no, that's kind of fair. No, yeah, I don't have an answer, unfortunately.
Good answer. Favorite meal to cook or last meal you cooked?
Salmon, easily, because you can do it a bunch of different ways, and it's like for some reason something I do well. Like it just that one hits. But I would say I want to throw two into the mix though, because they're personal to me, which is tom yum soup. Not entirely fair to call it tom yum, because what people assume, like what people are used to with tom yum, is not exactly what this is, because it's more of like a coconut base. It's more like tom kha. but it's something my dad used to cook when I was young, and so I replicate his recipe. And then pisole, and so like those are the two like comfort dishes from my childhood. Um,
Nice.
yeah.
Last favorite or last video game you played?
It's Balatro. It's
Oh yeah.
yeah. So for everyone else, it's if you don't play video games, it's single player poker. If you do play video games, it's like roguelite deck builder poker. And if I had a life, it would destroy it because it is very compelling.
I feel like you're more of a gamer than you let on.
Well, so I find games and I latch onto them because I love them.
Yeah.
Like I could name a few, like The Binding of Isaac and Balatro, Slay the Spire. Like, but I'm not like a gamer in the sense that like I play all the games, like keep up with who's releasing what, and like
Sure.
the Skyrims and those are less my speed. I just
Yeah.
get bored too fast. I get bored way too fast. So all of the games that I mentioned that I love so much are you play like a run, and the run takes like 30 minutes to an hour, and then you're done. And so I move on.
Sure.
So that's
Yeah.
that's my speed. Mobile games, if you will.
I can relate to that. I think I haven't been able to since I was a kid kind of be able to play like a single player adventure game. I don't know what it is. I moved on.
It's daunting to me. Like these games, like some of my favorite games of all time are The Legend of Zelda, like Wind Waker GameCube era, but all of them, I love them so much. But I can't play the new ones because it's hundreds of hours. Like I'm sorry, but how am I supposed to do that? And if I get sucked into it, then I'm gonna do it, and that's gonna create a problem in my life. So
Yeah.
I have to be strong.
It makes me a little jealous that people are able to get
Yeah.
sucked in and have the
Well,
time.
this platform is enabling it.
Honestly,
If we all become Twitch streamers, maybe we can play as many video games as we'd like to.
right? Some of us have to stay the Twitch viewer and just watch other people and live through that.
Oh, by the way, any Twitch Primes? Oh wait, that's not how this works, right? You have to be a partner.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet, unfortunately. What are we at? Like 12 followers, which thank you to everybody who's followed since we went live. Shout out to you guys. Yeah. On that note, I think kind of gonna wrap things up. But I do want to ask either you if you have anything coming up, anything we should be looking out for. You don't have to, of course, squeeze anything you can't talk about yet, but if there's anything you want to mention or any old stuff you want to plug, go for it.
I'm gonna start because he actually has stuff probably, so I'll let him get the
Sure
last
thing.
word, so it's more memorable. Yeah, so I am working on new music. Everything I'm saying is in the wind right now, so sorry. I don't have any like concrete stuff, but I have this like very sweet hyperpop album that he can attest to because he's heard it. It will come out because it has to. It's kind of one of those, like, it's so finished, and it's just such a complete package that we will share that with the world. But it's a brand new project, and so launching a brand new project is, who knows? It's 2025, man. I don't have the answers there, so we're sorting that one out. And then my partner, Aurelia, who came on tour with us to sing Supernova, which is one of the tracks that is on her and my collective EP is coming out. We got to test that on tour, which was really fun. I think he agrees. That was one of the more fun parts of the set.
I can agree too. That was a good time.
Yeah. So that collection is in the stages of being finalized. We have, okay, I said I didn't have any things, and now I'm talking a lot about my things. So, okay, now I'm happy.
You got asked about your thing,
yeah.
so it's good that you're talking
I
about
just
it.
I thought I didn't have any things. No, but so my partner Gabriella, who did the creative direction for Muta Melior, has been putting together this wild world, I'll call it, world building for this EP where I don't want to spoil too much because it's actually that cool, but we're like aliens and we have all these crazy things like a font and a language, and most of it came from her brain because she's a genius, but it's amazing. It's an amazing package of art that I'm really excited to share eventually. So that will probably be the first thing, and then maybe the hyperpop EP will come. Yeah, I think those are the two things I'll mention.
Did you say a font?
Yeah, so Gabriella made a language with all of its own grammar and language conventions, and then we started coming up with an alphabet, and we realized like, hey, this is hard. And so we reached out to a font designer a font designer reached out to us. It was kind of serendipitous, to help design this font. I wish I had their plugs because they're amazing. Their name is Wendy. And they just kind of like on spec, I guess I'll call it, like started working with us to develop this font for this language, and it looks amazing. It's fully functional as well, so that I'm very excited about. We're gonna probably use it to do a lot of like Easter egg stuff and scavenger hunt things, and
That's a lot of fun.
just we're trying to make the experience a little bit more interactive these days. Like I don't know if you guys are familiar with an ARG.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like
Uh-huh.
like usually they're kind of bad and baity, but the idea is strong, right? Like I'm not
Yeah.
trying to lure you into thinking you're about to discover something disgusting and then it's like, haha, it's my EP. But I like the concept of playing with the ecosystem in that way to like gain attention and gain interaction. So yeah, leaning into that a little bit.
Sweet. Ehiorobo.
Right on. So I have. Well, first off, I'll also check out the Minimalio EP. It's already out. We have cassettes that are available on the internet. If you don't already know, it's by us. It's by Icarus, Moth, and Ehiorobo. Thanks for watching so far. Anyway, I do have a bunch of features and collaborations with friends. Really, it feels from all over. Like various countries, producers and artists that have been following for a long time. That's a cassette that Nathan's holding right there. REP. Basically, yeah, a bunch of features coming out through this year that I'm really excited about. One's going to be coming out next month. It's probably best that I don't share too many details about it because it's I'll leave that to the artists, who are responsible for putting it out. But I'm really excited about it. So come check out my pages in about a month or so, and we'll see a new song. But other than that, yeah, collaborations, working on new projects all the time, developing some things and having fun doing it. I got a bunch of fun sketches in the hard drive. I'm ready to put some more spackle on them and put them out there for you in the next little bit.
Awesome. We'll be on the lookout for those features. And of course, new music from both you guys. And thank you. This was a fun hour.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, and it was a great time talking to you guys. Learn some new stuff, even though we've been working closely on a lot of stuff. So hope others learn things too, and hope some more people are going to tune in on when this makes it to YouTube. Maybe it'll make it onto podcast platforms. This thing's so new that we're just kind of going with the flow and seeing what we can do with it. But thank you for being a part of the second episode.
Yeah,
Of course.
Thanks for giving us the floor. We love chatting.
It's been a fun time. Oh yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, and thanks, chat. Everyone, have a great night.
Bye, chat.
Dubs in the chat.